And boom, I think we're live. I was hanging out with Willie in Atlanta, so I kind of want to just go, boom! What's up, you guys? Yeah, but I'm not Willie. I'm me. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. You're going to learn something tonight. I'm doing a Q&A live stream, and I'm just watching the stream right now, seeing that it's all starting up. It looks like the chat is getting it. It all looks good. Let me know in the chat if anything doesn't seem good, but I have really tried to up my live streaming game since the last time and try and get rid of all the technical difficulties, except for a few. So one of the things that I want to do, as this is now my full-time job, in the sense of upping my game, doing things better, I want to get people on these live streams, like have people come on, do live one-on-ones and so forth, maybe interviews, and unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, that is not going to be happening today. But we're going to do, hey, you know what? We just haven't done a good old-fashioned Q&A live stream in forever. So let's do one of those. I don't know if you guys can tell. I have done some things. Does my picture look good? Does my picture look way, way better than it used to? Yeah, hold on a second. Look at this. Hang on. Watch this. Oh, this old, new. Yes. So there's a few things that we've upped the game on, but what we're going to do is I've got a bunch of questions stacked up. I'm going to be taking your questions in the chat as well, but there's tons of chats going on. And I don't think I have the slow chat on, so there's going to be tons of chats. I want to remind you guys that the super chat is active. If you don't know what super chat is, basically it's a way that you can tip me. It's that little dollar sign down by the chat window. I'm going to be mentioning that, hopefully not too often over the course of the live stream. In case people come in the middle and don't know it. And I can see, thank you already. Someone has tipped me. One Esteban has tipped me $5 and didn't even ask a question. If you want to prioritize your question and make sure it stands out in the chat, I have a whole separate window that only shows me the super chats. So as chat is scrolling by and 5,000 questions are going by and I just can't possibly keep up with all of them as much as I would like to, if you want to throw me a few bucks and get your question pulled out into a separate window to make sure I get to it, Super Chat's a way to do that. Another way to make sure I get to your questions is Patreon. I've got a separate thread on Patreon for my patrons' questions, and I'm going to be prioritizing them as well. So, and I know I start the live stream off talking about, hey, would you pay me? But I don't know if you heard. Did you hear the news? I'm a full-timer now. Some people still haven't heard the news. Yep, I quit my day job. This is now my job. Just sitting here talking to you. Every so often I think about that, and then I freak out a little bit. And then it'll be fine. Because here's the thing, and I've seen you guys doing this in the chat. I've been watching you for the last 10 minutes as I got ready to stream. As long as you're able, there will always be people in this hobby who have questions. Because this is a really complicated freaking hobby. It's a stupidly complicated hobby. You have to know about electronics and soldering and computers and building and there will always be people with questions. And as long as somebody out there is willing to answer those questions from the minute they wake up in the morning to the minute they go to bed at night, you will be successful. I've seen you guys doing it in the chat. I've been watching you guys, and a few of you out there have been helping, and it's great. And so that's what I'm here to do. So we're going to get to the questions. But before I get to the questions, I thought I want to like, I'm not making any promises about like, am I going to do this every week? I want to make it a regular thing, but it's still early and I'm still feeling it out. But I want to kind of develop like a show format almost, right? And one of the things I think I'd like to do as part of these live streams, before I get to the questions, which I am going to get to, I always have a ton of stuff that I'm supposed to be doing a review of. And it takes me forever to get to because I try to be thorough. And sometimes I just need something to sit and stew for a while before I decide what I want to do with it. But I thought a nice way to use the format of the live stream would be to just kind of run through some of this stuff, show you what's on my desk, and give you a quick quick initial thoughts of it before I can sit down and do a bunch of work on a video. So that's what we're going to start with, and maybe that'll sort of become a part of the format. Like you watch a late night show and the guy starts and he does 5 minutes of comedy and then he sits at the desk and, a format, right? So let's do that first, and then we'll get to the Q&A. And I see the questions coming in. I'm going to get to them. Don't worry. So the most exciting thing behind me here on the desk. Yeah, I'll let you guys in the chat tell me what it is. Huh? What is it? Got to let the chat catch up. What is it? Huh? Final Glide's here. Oh, hey, Final Glide. Is it this? Is it the, look what I got. I just got these. I haven't even taken them out of the box. I know you guys want to know about these, and I wanted to show you that I have them because I know you're super psyched to hear about them, and so am I. Let's find out if these goggles are worth a freaking damn, right? Latency. So, and this actually, I can't avoid the Q&A, right? This actually brings us to one of the questions that somebody asked, which was, when are we going to get away from analog video? Dang it. And the answer is, I don't know. I don't think anytime soon, because digital video is so challenging. The advantage of digital video, of course, would be that we wouldn't have to, when you go digital, you know how you can just have all of your FrSky, your Tyrannuses and your Spectrums and whatever, all like at Flight Fest where they do the combat and there's 80 planes in the air at the same time and there's no interference. Wouldn't it be nice if video could do that exact same thing? Well, if it were digital, it could, but since it's analog, it can't. A digital video would be great, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on building these things, but I just can't help but notice that nobody seems to be able to make a cheap, low latency digital video system. There are some great digital video systems. DJI has one. How can DJI get you out, 3 miles away on their Phantom or their Mavic video? I don't know. And then you've got like FPV Blue, I think, is another company. And of course, Connex ProSight. And all of these systems are super expensive and don't have great latency, which is not what we need. So I'm really curious to see how this plays out. And I'm really excited to see DJI moving into the quad racing space. Some people are a little annoyed at them. They're like, hey, stay in your lane, DJI. But no, I would love to see them make a great digital FPV system. If anybody can, I think it's them. And we'll see. We're going to find out if this is it, but not today. Here's another thing that I have on my plate that I've been working on, and I really want to do justice to it. This is the Horus X10S. And you may recall that I really didn't like the X12. I just thought it was like $600. It was too expensive. Was it $500? I think it was $500 actually, not 600. $500. I thought it was too expensive. A couple things I didn't like about it. I said for $400 more than a Tyrannus, I just don't see the point. This X10, it comes in around $400, so it's only $200. I mean, if you compare it to like a Tyrannus SE, which it kind of compares to, the price difference is not as much. I gotta say, it's really, the weight is nice. It's just right. I really am kind of liking this. I'm not ready to say I would run out and spend $400 on it, but yeah, I'm psyched about it. I'm psyched to show you guys more about getting OpenTX on it and so forth. But you guys have been seeing this in the background for a while and maybe wondering, my initial leaning on it is, well, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. So we'll hear more about that coming soon. What else? This, you guys, I've been waiting for some new SkyZone goggles. SkyZone is working on some new goggles. I don't think I'm under NDA. Hey, surprise you, right? SkyZone's working on new goggles. And I've been waiting to get them, but I haven't gotten them. And so that is what has been holding me up reviewing this. Now, you may be thinking, well, that's just that little Eachine diversity module. What's so impressive about that? Oh, no. That is the Achilles firmware on this module, and the developer, the GC9N, the developer of Achilles, says that this module has a faster processor on it than the RX 5808 module that we've all been using. And he says that, he's like, have you tried it yet? I'm like, I haven't got to it. He says it's amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. And this, I'm super psyched. I've got all the video recorded for this video. and I just haven't edited it. These are the Eachine 2408 motors, and you may be thinking 2408, wow, that's a big ass motor, and that's what I thought when I first saw them. And I said, well, surely it's going to be impossible to use. It'll kill your batteries. And I'm really impressed with those motors. They are not. I'm going to have really great things to say about them. So you guys who have been telling me you got to try EFAW motors. Did I say EFAW? I think I did. The guys have been saying you got to try EFAW motors. I'm super impressed with these motors and looking forward to giving you guys a review. You may see I put them on the Kopis, the Holybro Kopis, because I thought, well, the Kopis comes with T-Motor Air motors, which are these little, lightweight, not very powerful motors. And I thought, well, let's just take the weakest, lightest weight motor and just put this massive behemoth of a motor on it and see how it affects how the quad flies. And I like it a lot. And it's paired with these props. These are HQ 5 by 4.8 by 3 V1S props. And these are the first HQ props I've flown in a while. And I'm super, super impressed with how durable these are and the performance on them. And they feel like they matched really well with these motors. So I'm looking forward to giving you guys that video. Oh yeah. Okay, almost to the Q&A part. But the other thing I wanted to tell you guys, and really, my whole purpose in doing this right now is that I have all this stuff and I want to tell you about it, but I got to make these videos and they take forever to make. So I'm just like, let's just tell them about it right now real quick in the beginning. This, you'll recognize. This, of course, is the TopSky goggle, which the first version of the TopSky goggle came out and just had so many problems, got panned. This is the work in progress. They sent me this and they actually asked me to make a video about it. And I'm like, guys, you made a few things better, but you're still not there yet. I don't want to make a video about it and get there. Get to V2. You're at like V1.5. They fixed the DVR. There were some problems with the DVR, so they fixed that. They fixed the eye cups are a little better. So there's now like a leather, silicone, whatever eye cup with a stick on, you Velcro it so it's more comfortable. The light leak problems are largely fixed. But the number one thing they haven't done yet is they haven't freaking, look at this. How are you going to keep this in? Right? They're supposedly going to make a silicone cover that holds this in. You cannot put I can't find it. You cannot put the black plastic cover with a module, a third-party module. And in fact, the third-party module, actually, the way the goggle gets narrower here, you can't actually fit the module all the way in. This one has been, you can't see it, I don't think, but it's been kind of cut away just to let it fit. You can also kind of slide it underneath there. But as soon as they get a module that actually will fit in the goggle, I wish they would modify the housing to take a standard module, but they haven't. So I'll be really excited to see V2 of these goggles. The picture looks really good. The screen size is good. And if they get a good module with good reception, I think they could really be competitive. Right now, they're moving in the right direction, but they're not like, you can't say, I made the eye caps better and I made the DVR better, but hey, the module still just flaps around there and doesn't have a good cover. Will you review the product? Like, it's not finished yet. So, it's getting there, though. All right. What else? I guess that's it. Okay. Whoa, holy crap. Anarchy 187 Matt, thank you so much. $50. Wow. And I want to say, ever since I made the announcement that I was going full-time, so many people have come out to support me. My Patreon went up a huge chunk on my Patreon. I hope it continues, but a huge chunk on my Patreon. And many people have just been sending me money via just PayPal and whatever. So thank you guys so much for your support. I do not in any way take it for granted, and I am looking forward to giving back. And let's start with that right now with some questions from the Super Chats. Let's check out the Super Chats. Nathan Flood contributed $2 and asks how to troubleshoot no video. So if you don't have video, there's two questions that you got to ask. Is number one, do you have a black screen or do you have a static screen? That's actually one question. If you have static, it usually means that you are not getting any signal, any RF signal from your video transmitter. It probably means either you're on the wrong channel, right, or your video transmitter is not powered up. This is where having something like a LaForge or a TrueD module, or if you have a spectrum analyzer, great, but most people don't, that it can scan the spectrum and tell you if you're actually transmitting and what channel you're transmitting on. If you have something like the Fat Shark transformer display, then you can't scan, and you have to manually step through the channels, and maybe you wouldn't find the right one. And you may think it's simple to know what channel you're on, but sometimes, the transmitter, the dip switches are weird, or the channels aren't right. So if you have static, it means your video transmitter is not transmitting, it's powered down, or you're on the wrong channel. If you have black screen, it means the video transmitter is working and you're on the right channel, but you're not getting any video signal from the camera. So your video signal could be broken, or your camera could be powered down. One thing to do is to power up the quad while looking in your goggles. And if you see like the Betaflight splash screen, there's a splash screen that Betaflight OSD shows when, assuming your flight controller has Betaflight OSD, which most of them do, then you'll see the splash screen. But if you don't see the Betaflight splash screen over a black screen, it means your camera isn't working, right? So that's the big thing for troubleshooting no video. Do you see static, or do you see black screen? JP Long asks, have I seen the Mocha Jadina frame? I haven't seen the Mocha Jadina frame, but I'm going to look at it right now, and let's see what we got. Oh, yeah, I have seen that one. That's an interesting frame. Let me see if I can share a picture of it on my desktop. Mocha Jadina. It's a really interesting looking frame. Let me find some images of it. Images. Mocha Jadina. I just like to say it. Yeah, so here's my thing about the Mocha Jadina. The guy who developed that frame, I think I was actually talking to him, and here's my big complaint about it, and the reason I declined to review it. If you look at the way the motor mount attaches, you can see that there's just 2 screws here. That's it. And I'm really skeptical that that is not going to create some leverage. If you think about the way the leverage is going to be applied as you crash, this thing is going to act as a lever, is going to create torque, and I just am not convinced that these 2 screws aren't going to get sheared off or damaged. And hang on one second. And I made that objection to him, and he said, no, I swear we've tested the hell out of it, and it'll be fine. And the problem is that, especially when you're a small frame designer, but even when you're a bigger company, there's only so much. Let's say you sent it to 20 pilots, and they flew the heck out of it. That would be a pretty big test group for a lot of people, but it's only 20 pilots. And I've seen this happen so many times that somebody will have a frame design that they're sure is solid, and they'll say, we're ready. And then the minute you sell 1,000 of them, suddenly you find a defect that you missed in your testing. And I'm just not convinced that the way those motors mount is going to, it just really looks like those are going to get ripped off to me. It just really does. So what I suggested was that if you could even just keep 2 screws, but maybe extend the mounting plate in some way so it was wider, so there was less torque applied to those screws, maybe that would be good. But it's a cool frame design, but that's just my biggest objection. The other thing I want to say is vertical arm frames. Everybody I can think of who's designed a vertical arm frame and brought it to market ends up offering an option to have struts, like reinforcing struts between the arms. Think about the Carrera Talon, for example. And the reason for that is that on a lot of quads, you'll end up with some yaw axis resonance because of the way the vertical arms kind of flap. And I would definitely want to, for all I know, this frame does have that, but I would definitely say anybody who's doing a vertical arm frame, you absolutely, no matter how stiff you think you made it, you got to have that at least as an option before you go to market. All right. Tyler Madison contributes $5 and asks, what's the deal with the Clearview goggle module? Will it be worth it? Well, whenever people ask me, is it worth it? I say, gosh, I don't know how much your money's worth to you. There's people out there who spending $25 on a motor is a big ask. There's people who spend $400 on a quad every other weekend. So whether it's worth it to you depends. That's, on how much your money's worth. Clearview absolutely does perform better than any other module or any other ground station, especially in really challenging environments. In a less challenging, if all you do is you race in an open field 100 feet away from yourself on a flight line, then whatever you got's going to be fine. Clearview still will have some advantages, but the additional price is probably not going to be worth it to you. But especially if you push extended range, and especially if you fly in challenging environments with multipath, like indoor environments, especially like for whoop racing, tiny whoop racers seem to me like they're just the ideal customer for a Clearview module because they're constantly flying indoors. The whoops have really weak video transmitters, and Clearview really excels in those environments. So nobody has actually, I haven't even seen the module yet. Ira from Clearview has sworn that as soon as he has some production units, they get them from the factory. They have to calibrate each one by hand. They have to do tweaking on it. So that's what's taking so long for them to get them. And as soon as they get me one, I'll test it. But they have a really good history in the past of developing software, or hardware and software that delivers. And so if they say they've got this module ready and it's going to deliver, I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. RC Flyer 85 gives $5, says, best of luck on this new endeavor. Thank you. I'd like you to check out the HDLRC XJB 145. Oh, okay. Let's take a quick look at that. Real quick. Let's see. Oh, this is a ready-to-fly quad. Yeah, unfortunately, there's so many of these cool products out there that I just don't have time to get to. And I have found myself sometimes saying, oh, that's cool, I'll take that. Oh, that's cool, I'll take that. And then I wind up with way too much stuff on my bench and not enough time, and I get really stressed out. So I've just accepted that I'm not going to be able to review all of the cool products in the world. And I'm just going to do my best to focus on, I'm going to do my best to focus first and foremost on education, and then second on reviewing just the products that I'm sincerely interested in, and that means I make the best content, etc., etc. But I'll definitely keep that on my radar. I do have a Diatone GT90 that I'm working on a review for, so there's a Diatone something. Chatty CRC donates $5 and says, you've done a few videos on the JBFC. Love it. Thank you. Thank you very much. How about a 6-inch tuning series? Yeah, I've been thinking about how I can branch out. Like the next thing I'm kind of leaning towards is maybe building like a 7-inch longer range rig, maybe like with 1.3 gigahertz video and crossfire. Wouldn't that be cool? Maybe. No promises, but yeah. 6-inch. I haven't done a lot of 6-inch tuning. Yeah, that would be really interesting. Robert Wright gives $10. Says, "Love what you do, Josh. Learned a ton of you. Thank you so much." I'm gonna get into this trap of calling out every single donation and then spend the whole. I've seen gamers do this where they spend so much time calling out super chats that they don't actually play the freaking game, which in my case would be doing the Q&A. So I'm not going to call out every single one. If you gave a super chat, thank you. I'm not going to shout out. I'm not going to give you a shout out. I hope that's okay. But I'm getting a lot of them, and I don't want to spend the whole thing just doing shout outs. Maybe I'll do shout outs at the end. But let me focus on the questions. Where do you see the hobby going over the next 5 years? Anarchy 187 gave $50. Thank you so much. It says, where do you see it going over the next 5 years? That's tough. One of the things that's going to affect where the hobby goes over the next 5 years is going to be whether the FCC gets a lot more heavy-handed in regulating the things, or not the FCC, but the FAA gets a lot more heavy-handed in regulating the things that we're doing. So that could certainly have a big effect if they decide to really crack down. But as far as technology goes, man, it's so hard to predict. The last time I was asked that question, it was maybe a year ago, and I said all-in-ones were going to be the next sort of big step, and we're starting to see that now with all-in-one flight controllers and integrated stacks. Things like one of my favorites right now is the Maytech F405 combined with the FC Hub VTX, right? So we're seeing integration, but actually not the sort of all-in-one integration that you might have predicted. Like there are a few flight controller and ESCs and some stacks that do it all with VTXs, but I think you get to a point where people would rather have the freedom to choose the parts they want. And when you get an all-in-one, you're kind of locked in. So it seems like we've kind of plateaued at the level of integration that we're going to get, and we'll see where it's going there. I would love to see more like things like DRL, like drone racing and acro events getting into wider culture. I would love to see that happening over the next 5 years. And I would love to see it becoming more accessible to people who aren't necessarily computer and electronics nerds. I hope that we see companies like DJI. I mean, you could hate, a lot of people want to hate on like the DJI Spark and say, hey, get out of our yard. You know, we're doing our thing over here. But I think there's definitely a place for companies like the DJI Spark. Or even if you just look at ready-to-fly quads, like the Holybro Kopis is one of my favorites. There are so many really good ready-to-fly quads now, or plug-and-fly quads, that didn't used to be there, and that does make the hobby more accessible. Although it also kind of ends up with people in a situation like this guy I met this week who had like 10 quads he'd bought, all of them not flying, probably for simple reasons, but he just didn't know how to fix them and needed some help. So anyway. I hope that when we the other thing Anarchy asked, Anraki asked was, will we move towards better FPV feeds, or will the turning point be better batteries? Here's what I say about batteries. Elon Musk is working his butt off. All his engineers, you know, going to Mars and making electric cars and stuff, they're all working their butts off to make a better battery. And so far, nobody's cracked it. So whoever makes a better battery is going to be rich beyond their wildest dreams. And it just hasn't happened. And so I kind of feel like we're at mini quads aren't going to be where we see better batteries come from. You know, it's going to be incremental. Yeah. So, let's see. Let me scroll down here. Oh, is that it? That's it. Okay. John Carr gave $2 and asked, what's my favorite flight controller? Okay, so I'm obligated to say my flight controller, the Joshua Bardwell F4. But the other flight controller I'm really loving right now, because, you know, obviously say, oh, mine is clearly the best for everyone. The other one I'm loving right now is the Matic F405. Not the all-in-one, which has problems with noise, but the F405 combined with the VTX, the FC Hub VTX. Those two together make a flight controller, video transmitter, PDB, and a really nice, well-integrated stack. It's a decent video transmitter. Some people prefer a separate video transmitter like the Race Day Quads Mach 2 or a TBS Unify, in which case you wouldn't want to go that direction. But you know, those are two that I'm happy to say I like. Let's see. Let me go back through the chat. Somebody asked in the chat, what's my favorite motor? And I have to tell you, I'll go back to these. I am like freaking loving these EFAW 2407 motors right now. Normally I'm a guy who's used relatively low torque, smooth motors with lighter props. I've only recently started branching out and trying to get, you know, like bigger motors or heavier props. Like I only fairly recently moved to this Dow Cyclone 5045. And even then I used the 5045 and not the 5046. But these guys have been topping out at like 120 amps full throttle punch, which that's not that bad, honestly. And they were a little underpowered on like a Dow Cyclone T5040C prop, but on these 5x4.8 props, or maybe even a 5050, they have so much power, but the 2407 motor has so much torque that it's actually like they still have great prop wash handling and response time. In fact, when I switched from this quad back to my quad, my Chameleon with the Ready-Made RC rifle motors on it, they're I think they're a 2206 and they're like a 2550 kV. The response time on those was not slow, but it was so much slower than these EFAW motors that I was constantly like tapping the ground because I would be too late on the throttle. I would just expect the throttle to be there and it just wouldn't. So right now, I'm loving these motors, and I feel a little bit embarrassed to say that because when I see a 2407 motor, my first thought is it's just numbers. It's marketing BS. Somebody saw 2306 and they just added one to it and made 2407 and see, it's better. But I actually really like the freaking motor. In fact, I've often said I don't want to do any sponsorship deals just for the sake of slapping my name on a product and making a buck. But I've been thinking, I really like these motors. Maybe I should do like a JB edition because I'm digging them. Anyway, so there you No, Abraham Levine. Sorry, I got to disagree with you there. 2306 and larger is overkill for 5-inch. I got to disagree with you. I would have agreed with you, but the additional torque and response you get, especially allowing you to go to heavier 5-inch props, means you kind of get the best of both worlds because you can get the response times of a lighter prop with the additional thrust of a heavier prop. And normally you would give up increased amp draw or weight, but actually, like, I think these are 36 gram motors, 39 grams, maybe. I can't remember. They've done a great job of getting these motors down to a weight that you can actually. I have back there. I got a quad. It's got the Foxier de Toro motors on it. They're 2206 motors, and they weigh around 34 grams. Don't hold me to that. I don't want to misrepresent the motor, but they weigh the same as some 2306, 2406 motors. And so it's like, what are you really giving up? Actually, not that much. So anyway, somebody asked about the EV200. I have not, unfortunately, I don't know about the EV200. Rasmus Svard gave SEK 50 SEK. I have no how much, I think, is that Swedish kroner? I only know that because I listen to other live streamers who call out currencies. Asked, what do you think of the new Eachine EV200? I would love to see them. I was really hard on the Eachine EV100 and got a lot of flack for it. And we won't revisit that. But I hope that the specs on the EV200 are a lot better. I hope that it lives up to it. But what's the price on the EV200? I remember it being in the 300 to 350 range. And everybody says, oh, Fat Shark Killer, give me the $100, $150 Fat Shark Killer. But every $100 to $150 pair of goggles that comes out has a lot of compromises. And every time they put a goggle out that actually is sort of on par, it ends up costing $300, $350. So I don't know, it just seems like that's where the price point's going to be. Rasmus also asks, what would be the benefits of 2 diversity modules? Well, I guess you could do quad diversity, right? So you could have like 2 omni antennas and 2 directionals, or you could have 4 directional antennas like in an array. I don't know. It's cute that they've done it. If they've implemented it right in the software, it could add some. I mean, there's quad diversity modules out there already. You know, more diversity is better, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, Random FPV. Random FPV is in the chat. Random, you are the only person, because we did that live stream together a while back. You're the only person I've ever tagged as a moderator on my channel. So feel free to moderate if you want. Thanks for showing up. Let's see. Have I had any exposure to the DJI goggles? Asks Danbo. Well, yeah, Danbo. As a matter of fact, I've got them right here, but I haven't had any exposure to them. I haven't even taken them out of the box yet. It's been so freaking cold in here this week. It's been like highs in the, I think it got up to 40 like the last 2 days, but it's been so cold. I haven't even been able to get out to fly. So, yeah. Renegotiator gave $5 and asked my thoughts on the Rooster. Well, the Chameleon is a great frame. The Rooster, it has replaceable arms. I think we all like that. And it has, so because, you know, one of the annoying things about the Chameleon is that when you do scuff an arm or something, then you got to replace the whole bottom plate. It's basically a rebuild, or at least a transplant of the electronics. So it's got replaceable arms, and it's got the camera just a little bit lower towards the center line, which I noted when I first flew the Chameleon. I thought the camera was a little bit high from the center line. So I haven't flown it yet, but in principle, I like it. Let's see. What's up with F7 boards? Asks Charles Phillips. Charles, I feel like it's still a little bit early for F7s. Betaflight is not yet maxing out the capabilities of the F4. Now that Kalen Dorr from Raceflight is contributing to the Betaflight project, maybe his big thing has always been 32 kilohertz gyro sampling and advanced filters based on that. And maybe now that he's contributing to the Betaflight project, we will start to see more focus on the higher loop times. Betaflight can do 32K right now, but there's no point in it. In fact, many quads, if I would dare say most quads, fly worse on Betaflight at 32K compared to 8K sampling. But if we start seeing Betaflight shift heavily towards 32K sampling, then we'll start to see the F4 boards quickly maxed out. As it stands right now, if you're assuming you're doing an 8K loop time, I don't see a lot of point in using an F7 board. The main advantage of F7 is that all the UARTs do inversion. So if you fly FrSky and have issues with S-Bus and SmartPort, then an F7 board, you can just, it's like the days when we were on F3 boards and just could put anything on any UART we wanted. But here's the reason I don't actually push F7s right now. There's just a few of them out there. And as soon as Betaflight really starts needing them, then we're going to see a huge proliferation of really good F7 boards. So right now, if you see an F7 board you like and you want to get it, go for it. But I think you have more choice and more flexibility with F4s. And in 3 or 4 months, when Betaflight 3.3 comes out, and maybe it will really start to work the F4 and start to feel the limits of the F4. Maybe not, though. I think we're going to start to see more good F7 boards to choose from. Personally, I'm still putting F4s in all my quads right now. Christian Rush, sorry, Christian, I hope I didn't mangle your name too badly, gives $10 and asks, what are the main characteristics between a freestyle and a racing motor? You know, I'm not a racing pilot, so I hesitate to try to give a definitive answer to that question, but it seems like racing pilots are more interested in going as fast as they can for the minimum amount of time necessary to finish the race. Damn their batteries and damn flight time. If you need to do 1 minute and 45 seconds to get 3 laps in, that's what you'll do. Whereas freestyle pilots are more focused on efficiency and flight time. That's what I would say. Kane Mills gives $5 and asks, have you messed around with TBS Crossfire? I have not. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to hear if Random FPV, you have a Crossfire rig. I was supposed to get together with you recently and try it out to find out if the lower latency and more response time of the Crossfire actually lives up to expectations. I'm dying to try it out. But no, I haven't messed with it. I do want to do some Crossfire videos. It's gotten so popular, I feel kind of obligated. Nathaniel Stuckey wants to know what I would recommend for the best antenna setup. I assume you mean on goggles. Personally, I use the VAS Ion from IB Crazy, VAS, VAS Ion, and I combine it with a TrueRC X-Air antenna. That's what I personally find to work really well for me. A pagoda on your goggles also could work really well. The problem is that pagodas are hard to manufacture correctly, and it's hard for you to know. They're hard to mass produce correctly. They have very, very tight tolerances, and it's hard for you to know if you've got a pagoda whether the manufacturer made it right or not. So, yeah. Let's see. When am I coming to the dark side, aka 3-inch? I never really have loved micro quads. I do have a couple here. I'll show you guys. I'm working on a videos about this. Is the Newbeedrone B-Brain or Acrobee with the B-Brain V2 flight controller. It's a Betaflight flight controller well, you can see it clearly looks like a Whoop. And these two guys are actual legit from Jesse Perkins Tiny Whoops. Got to give him the colors, and I'm going to get together with Xavier. Remember Zav FPV who did the HDLRC Zeus build with me? He was great. I'm really looking forward to working with him again, and I'm going to get him together. We're going to put up some Tiny Whoop race tracks. We're going to fly it. We're going to see how we're doing. Oh, good question. Good question. Ulrich Petri asks, what's your opinion on FrSky F-Port? I also got a question about this from one of my patrons over on Patreon. I got to go over to Patreon and get their questions. You guys are keeping me so busy in the super chat, I'm going to miss it, but I can't do that. Can't let my patrons get overlooked. F-Port. What is F-Port? FrSky F-Port is a new receiver technology, and they made an announcement about it, and you can actually get it working if you flash custom firmware to your receiver and your flight controller. Here's what F-Port is. It's basically S-Bus and SmartPort on the same wire. And inversion, you can turn inversion off in the receiver if you want to. And that's kind of cool, but I think people heard about F-Port and they started thinking, oh, is that kind of like Crossfire? unfortunately, F-port, it basically saves you one UART and it saves you one wire, which is okay. And it saves you the hassle with inversion, which, as long as we're using F4 boards, is a hassle. Although when we go to F7s, it won't be an issue anymore. But I kind of feel underwhelmed by F-port. Like, I wish they were doing 150 hertz sampling and the fancy stuff that Crossfire is doing. And they're kind of starting to do it, but they're not quite there yet. I wish they would take it further. Right now, I'm not super excited about F-port, to be honest with you. What's the word on the battery test data? Hatfield CWS, thank you so much for asking that. I am starting to figure out how the software works and how the battery test unit works, but I am still waiting from West Mountain Radio, who has custom ordered the amplified loads that will let me. Right now, I can only discharge at like 40 amps or 100 watts. So maybe I'm going to, in the month of January, I might do some tests on small batteries like 850 milliamp hour, 3S or 4S, just to kind of get you guys, the sense of what's going to happen. But it's still, I said this way back when I did the GoFundMe, it was going to be 2 months before you saw any results because they have to custom order the. Not too many people want to do this 2,000 watt discharge. So they're having them custom made and they haven't sent them to me yet. So that's the update on the battery. I do want to actually, let me say one more thing. Hold on. I need to show you guys this. This was sent to me. You guys, a lot of you probably already know what this is. This is a Batt-Safe box. This is a box. It was sent to me as part of the by Batt-Safe to use in the battery testing. Thank you to them for sending it. And basically what this is it's a battery charging box, but it's got this custom filter. Maybe it's a filter is a good word for it, in the lid, so that if your battery pops off, no flames come out, and it also helps dissipate the smoke. So, like, one of the things people do is you get like an ammo can, right? And you'll pull the gasket out of the ammo can lid. And that's actually really good at containing the flames from a battery explosion. It's actually really good. Like, white smoke pours out the lid, but no flames come out. But white smoke pours out the lid, right? So it's still going to kind of ruin your house. And I'm not saying the Batt-Safe I'm not like recommending that you pop a battery off in your living room, but the additional filtering of the Batt-Safe, helps keep the flames and helps keep it a little better, and also helps keep some of the hot spots. So anyway, thank you to Batt-Safe for sending that to use in the battery testing. I will be using it, and I'm kind of torn. I kind of want to do a test where I pop a battery off in the Batt-Safe. Just, why not, right? But then I kind of ruin it, and then, then what? And I don't know. Anyway, so there's that Batt-Safe battery testing. How do you configure BL Heli 32 ESCs? Asks Chris Romano, who gives $2. You got to use BL Heli Suite 32. So if we go over to the desktop, BL Heli Suite 32, we go to the downloads right here, and this is latest BL Heli Suite. BL Heli Suite. Is that it? Yeah, there we go. So you see here, we've got BL Heli Suite 32 and BL Heli Suite. This is what you use for BL Heli 32. That's the answer. Gino Palumbo gives $5 and asks, quick explanation on filtering. I got a video on how to tune filters, and I'm just going to let you go check that video out. It's on my channel, in Betaflight filters. You can also look at my Alien versus Chameleon Practical PID tuning series. I did a lot of filter tuning in that. I have not, Samuel Tucker, I have not seen the Team D Hornet FS. That's the, is that a FS277? No, that's a frame. I have not seen that. Is that it? It doesn't blow me away. The front end, I see what they're going for. Doesn't blow me away. Yeah. I like they use countersunk screws. That's good. You guys can't see this. Hang on. Oh, there you go. Now you can see it. I like that they use countersunk screws. I'm a little skeptical about how little carbon there is here at the edge, but who knows? It could be fine. I like that they protect the camera. That's a good thing. But, it's not bad. Doesn't blow me away. There you go. You asked. Garrett asks, what do you think of the Betaflight open source ESC project? I'm super excited about it. I don't know a lot about it, but yeah, I love the idea of open source ESC firmware. What's going on with BLHeli 32? Isn't it interesting? They went closed source and licensing with BLHeli 32, and BLHeli S is kind of sticking around, isn't it? Well, I guess that was kind of inevitable. Okay, I have to go. You guys are keeping me so busy with the super chat, and thank you so much for that. Thank you for all your contributions. Yeah, I count on you guys now. It's my full-time job. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I got to work on this video today. Oh, it's good. Oh, so much work. And then I'm like, no, this is my job now. I can just. And sometimes I'm like, I gotta go out and fly, and I think as just a habit, I think, oh, should my boss gonna try to get a hold of me? And then I'm like, no, she's not gonna try to get a hold of me. So thank you guys for that. But I'm gonna go over to the Patreon page because my patrons asked a bunch of questions, and I gotta get to them, right? So I want to remind you guys, that I do have a Patreon. You can, in fact, let me show you this real quick. If you go to my website, fpvknowitall.com, I have the Ultimate FPV shopping list. I need to start saying this more. You guys, when you use my affiliate links, or anybody's affiliate links, not just mine, you don't have to buy the actual product. If you click on any affiliate link and then go shop for anything, I get credit for it. You don't have to buy this exact product. So anytime you go to shop for one of these vendors, you can just go by my website. And in fact, what I wanted to show you guys was on my website under About, there's a page Support Me where I have my affiliate links here. You can click on any of these affiliate links, go shopping. This is especially good for Amazon, right? You're going to go buy a refrigerator off of Amazon? Yeah, go click on this link first. I get a cut of it. It doesn't cost you anything extra. So those are things you can do to support me. And you can also, of course, become a patron at Patreon. And that is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go down. I'm going to ignore the super chat for a minute, so I'll catch up. And I'm going to answer these questions from my patrons. And then after I do that, I'm going to answer some questions from the regular chat. I'm going to keep ignoring the super chat and answer some questions from the regular chat so you guys don't think that you can't. I answer everybody's questions, not just the people who pay me. That's my philosophy. So let me work my way through these. Mark Wasserman. Hang on, I'm going to adjust my mic. It's going to make a horrible noise. There we go. Mark Wasserman over at Patreon asks, I purchased some smaller ESCs that do not have built-in current sensing. These are BLHeli 32 ESCs, and BLHeli 32 ESCs can have current sensing built in. And one of the things that lets you do is if you have a 30 amp ESC, if it gets to like 35 amps, it'll just ramp down as opposed to just melting itself. But if you bought BLHeli 32 ESCs, hang on. If you bought BLHeli 32 ESCs without current sensing, what's the effect of that? Will I get an advantage of that? So current sensing on the ESCs, one of the things it lets you do is if your flight controller doesn't have a current sensor built in, you can get current readout from the ESCs, and that's nice. One disadvantage of that, though, is that it will only measure the power that your motors are pulling, which is most of the power that you're using, to be fair. But if you have a big video transmitter or lots of LED lights or something on your quad, the current sensing in the ESCs, of course, is not going to measure that. The other thing that current sensing gives you is the ability to set a current limit in the ESC so that if the quad tries to pull more power than that or more amps than that, then it'll ramp back. Now, this is a good thing because it keeps you from destroying your ESCs by using too big of a motor or too heavy of a prop. But it's a bad thing because if you have the current limit and you're slamming up against it, it actually can create oscillations. So if you set the current limit too low or if your motors are too big, you can actually get full throttle oscillations because the ESCs are constantly ramping back. So that's certainly something to be aware of. Will telemetry make the quad fly better? Mark asks. No, not really. Just give you more information for tuning, really. Bob Alexander asks, I built a quad using parts from my local hobby shop, Emax red bottoms, Emax ESCs, and I got it flying. It has a bad oscillation that gets worse the longer it is armed. Wow, that's weird. The only time I've seen something like that, you guys chime in the chat if you have an idea about that. The only time I've seen something like that is if I had an in-flight adjustment turned on that was causing my P gains to change. So the minute I power the quad up, it starts increasing the P gain slowly over time. Now I'm guessing that's not the case with Bob. What could cause a quad's oscillation to get worse the longer it's armed? That is a weird one. That is a weird one. I'm not sure about that. I mean, it could be something heating up. That seems like really, yeah. But Bob's actual question is he's got 2 of one kind of ESC and 2 of another kind. He's got an Emax Bullet 20 amp and an Emax Bullet 30 amp. And is there going to be some problem? No. There's absolutely no issue with mixing and matching. Like they're both Emax Bullets, but one's a 20 amp, one's a 30 amp. Chances are those are basically the same ESC, just with larger FETs, right? So it's really not an issue. But even if you were to mix and match like BL 32 and BL S, the quad would probably still fly fine. I don't recommend that, but if you have to do it, you're probably not going to notice much difference. Dariomatic, good suggestion. There's a feature in Betaflight called VBAT PID compensation, where as the battery voltage gets lower, the PIDs are ramped up to compensate for the weaker battery voltage. If that were turned on, maybe it could cause that. We would need to distinguish whether it was the time since power up or the battery level that was causing the issue. Yeah. Oh, good one. Z, good suggestion. Z suggests that he is in angle mode. Bob, if you are in angle mode, there is a drift in the accelerometer that occurs if you're in an auto level mode. That would cause it to drift, but not oscillate. But what happens is that it starts to go to the left and you hold to the right and it gets worse and worse and worse. That wouldn't cause oscillation, though. Okay, moving to the next question. John Sagainario, sorry, John, for mangling your name. Where do you think our tech is going? How do we bridge the knowledge gap so many newbies that we have who've been doing this a while have gotten over? I feel like it's a mighty hill we have to climb to get more people involved. It is. And we got to understand that there may be a limit on how widespread this hobby is going to get because it's so technically demanding. A lot of people who would enjoy the hobby are not going to be able to get into it. Even if you can buy a ready-to-fly kit that gets you flying, you're going to crash and then you're going to need to work on it. You could certainly argue there's a real demand for people with knowledge who are willing to help other people, and that's certainly something that I have capitalized upon to now make a full-time job out of. Chris P. asks, Chris, I love this question. If you could write your own flight controller software and create a GUI for it, what would you add or remove from the 3 currently available to make it amazing? And this is something that Raceflight totally knocks it out of the park at. And some of you are surprised to hear me saying anything nice about Raceflight because you've got the wrong idea that I have some kind of an axe to grind against it, which is not true, and I don't. I'm always happy to acknowledge when somebody does something right, and I'm also happy to criticize when somebody does something wrong. Raceflight kills it with the initial setup. They auto-detect the receiver protocol, spectrums, S-Bus, UARTs, etc., and then they auto do the setup, like board alignment. They have you tip the quad forward, tip it to the left, whatever. Motors, all that stuff they just do automatically. And this is something that every simulator does, right? Just in the beginning of the simulator, they auto map the transmitter sticks and everything. And I'm so annoyed that Betaflight doesn't do this. It's just, I don't know why they don't. It's okay. The Betaflight devs say, well, it's harder than you think. Well, okay, but Raceflight did it, so get with it. Because I got to tell you, I get so many, I probably get 3 to 5 questions a week from people asking about getting their receiver set up right. They're using S-Bus, they're using iBus, they're using UARTs, all that stuff. Please just make it be automatic. So that is something I'd love to see, is all that initial setup, endpoints, transmitter mapping, receiver protocol, all that stuff be automatic. And Raceflight pretty much does it. They're not 100%. They don't get it right 100% of the time, but they get it right a lot of the time. I wish Betaflight did too. So that's certainly something. Kuziatron, you keep asking that question. I don't know the answer So I'm just going to save you the trouble of asking again. GoPro session mount I can use with a neutral density filter. Unfortunately, I just don't know the answer to that. Look on Great 3D or get somebody with a 3D printer to design one for you. That's what I would say. Bowcraft asks, I'd like to see what your thoughts are on the difference between a well-tuned quad with premium parts versus a stock tune, aside from dynamic filtering and notch filter set properly. The difference between a hand-tuned quad and stock is not near as much as it used to be. Stock default PIDs fly freaking great for a lot of people. A lot of my quads, I build them and I don't bother tuning them. I just fly them. If it's a quad that I'm really like into, then yeah, I'll tune it. But you know, not a lot of them I just don't even bother before I take them out and fly them because the defaults are so good. So not as much as it used to be. That's the answer. Should we use Vladimir? I'm not even going to try your last name. Sorry, man. Asks about ESC signal wires. Should we twist the ground? Here's what I say about that. I don't use ESC signal ground on every build. If the flight controller doesn't have a signal ground pad and the ESC didn't come with a signal ground wire, I don't bother installing one. If there is a signal ground wire, I might solder it to the power ground pad. The only time I'd keep in my back pocket that if I'm getting noise issues, maybe adding signal ground would help. But especially because we have such short wires on our quads now, it just doesn't seem like it's mandatory for every build. I do think there are sometimes an advantage. Sometimes there's advantages to removing the signal ground because of ground loops. It sort of depends. So just know that if it's not working for you, try the other way, I guess is what I'm saying. You also asked me to say hello to the Ukrainian FPV community and especially Kharkiv City. Okay. There you go. Kevin Duquette. Poor camera control with the JB board. Yeah, here's what I have to say. So the JB board and other flight controllers have a camera control pad, but it's still just a resistor. It's not until we get the DAC functionality, the digital analog converter functionality, then we're not going to have perfectly reliable camera control. So yeah, you still have to tweak it. I've had a lot of people changing the internal reference voltage, even though you're not supposed to, not the reference voltage, the internal resistance parameter. Although you're not supposed to have to do that. A lot of people have said that they couldn't get it working reliably until they tweaked that. But they've said they just started at 100 and worked their way up. You know, they didn't actually calculate the value. They just played with it till they got it to work. Yeah. Let's see. Jason Tan asks me to comment on RS2K's Betaflight fork with Kalman filtering. I have not tried it. From people who have tried it, they've said it's amazing. I was trying to get Kalen to come on the show tonight and talk about it. So I'm not going to talk about it because I still hope that I'll get him to come on and talk about it himself. And I may try to fly it. Some people are asking me, hey, will you do a video about the Kalman filtering in Betaflight 3. It's so preliminary, though, that if I did a video about it, then a month later something would change, and then I'd have to go correct the old videos. So I'm going to hold off on a video. Maybe I'll fly it and just do a demo of how it works. But as far as documenting it, I'm still holding off on that. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. Jason Tan left. Oh, Jason, you left the comment like 2 minutes ago. Jason says, tell the guy to go buy neutral density filtered gels instead of the hard filters. You can use the gels on anything with tape. You just tape the neutral density gel over the GoPro, and then you can use it with any GoPro case that you like. Well, thank you, Jason. My patrons are leaving comments here already. Let's see. Okay. Let's go now. I didn't get all the patron questions. I got most of them. There were a couple I skipped for reasons. Let's go over to the live chat, I'll get back to the super chat in a minute. Let's go to the live chat and let's get some questions over here. And the first question I see jumping out here, Random Chaos asks, talk about some high voltage such as 6S. Random Chaos, I'm really excited to tell you that Catalyst Machine Works is getting ready to send me 2 America quads, not America, America. The more you growl, the more American you are when you, America. What country are you from? America. That's how you say it. They're sending me 2 of them. One of them with like 1700 kV motors for 6S and one with like whatever, you know, whatever, 4S motors. So that I'm going to fly those side by side. I'm looking forward to getting those. Yeah, everybody if you look at somebody like Maddie Stunts flies 6S on whatever 2800 kV motors, and he gets like 47-second flight time, and it has a great time at it. But there's another way to go, which is to go to 6S higher voltage, pardon me, with lower kV and get some advantages. What advantages? I don't know, because the RPMs are going to be the same. You go higher voltage, lower kV, higher kV, lower voltage. The RPMs are going to be the same, but what is different? I don't know. We're going to find out. So I'm looking forward to that. Artemis Prime. Why would I get white screen in my camera on KISS and the Steel PDB? Well, white screen from the camera could be a damaged sensor. It's probably not a bad video connection because you'd see black screen. I would try swapping out the camera. That's the next thing I would do. People are asking what I'm drinking. This is just water, I'm afraid. Just water today. Nothing fancy, anything like that. Sam Lathnier, what do you think about soft mounting the PDB? Well, I don't usually soft mount my PDB. I don't see a point in it. What are you soft mounting it for? I don't know. Anyway. R2R, I would watch more of your videos if you changed your intro line. It's a bit high on the arrogant scale. I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people bring that up. Number one, I've been accused of being arrogant. And on some level, I just own it. But I've also been told I'm humble in my own way. Take that for what you will. Here's what I say about that, though. When they say, you know, what's the tagline for Pringles? Pringles potato chips, right? Or crisps, as they're called in some countries. Once you pop, you can't stop. And when people say, you're going to learn something today, is like, they get offended at that. I'm like, do you open a can of Pringles and then just eat one and be like, I did stop. See? You can't tell me what to do, Pringles, right? It's a tagline. It's a slogan. It's aspirational, right? What's that other channel? I don't remember. I'm blanking on the name of the other channel that does. It's a tagline. It's aspirational. I want you to learn something today. You're going to learn something today, right? I don't mean it like, you idiot, sit down and listen. You're going to learn something today because I have a giant brain. I will bestow my nuggets of wisdom upon you. No. It's just like, I needed a tagline for my channel. I wanted one, and I thought, you're going to learn something today. That's my goal. Every time you watch one of my videos, I want you to learn something. Even if it's a freestyle video, I put the freaking stick overlay on it, so hopefully you can learn something. That's my driving force, is I want to live up to the claim that every time you watch a video, you learn something. And if you already knew the thing I was talking about because you're a smart person, that's fine. I'm not offended. Please don't be offended at my tagline. That's what I would say. If you think it's arrogant and it turns you off, I'm sorry. But it's my tagline. I'm sticking with it. I'm going to own it. And, that's what my goal is going to be. There you go. Let's see. What else? Don't bestow any nuggets on me. Yeah, no. Yeah, if you didn't learn anything today, hey, either you're smart or I'm dumb, but hey, I put out a lot of videos. I hope you learned something on most of them. I'm not changing the tagline. No, R2R, I'm here to teach you something. See, we're focus grouping it, and that's a mistake. I'm not here to focus group it. You're going to learn something today, motherfucker. That's how I feel. You're going to learn something today. I'm fired up. Now, I'm Joshua Bardwell, and I showed up to clean your rugs. I'm here to teach you something. No, that's not how I feel about it. You're going to learn something. Damn it. I'm going to teach you something. I feel passionate about it. I apologize to those of you with children in the room. Sorry. I don't know. There's no... sorry. All right, moving on. Moving on. I apologize to those of you who expected a family-friendly stream. All right, here we go. Here we go. Oh, man, it's going crazy. It's going crazy. This chat's going crazy. I got to turn on slow. I can't even see. It's going so fast. Let's see. Let's go back to the super chat here. Let's see what I've got. Super chat has slowed down, so I'm ready to start taking questions from the super chat again. If you guys are ready to continue giving, should I have gone? I purchased a 50 millimeter Emax Pagoda. Should I have gone with an 80 millimeter? I'm not sure what you mean by that question. 50 millimeter Emax Pagoda. Is that just the length of the antenna wire? Yeah. As far as I know, the Pagoda antennas, the performance does change if you change the length of the coax. But I assume that if TBS is selling them, they're probably good, right? They probably wouldn't sell them if they were bad. So I think you're probably fine. Let's see. I don't do it. I don't swear very often. I swear, occasionally I can't resist. I do apologize to anybody who was offended. But why do you drone builders always handle the components recklessly? Asks Robin Hugenbosch. I think probably, Robin, what you mean by handle the components recklessly is that we don't use an anti-static strap or that kind of thing, right? But we look... Oh, yeah, I have a little static on my FETs. That's the issue. Hit my camera. It's probably a little bit of a bad idea. Yeah, we're going to crash these things into the ground at 70 miles an hour. They're not going to last 3 months, so a little bit of static's not going to hurt anything. Okay. Bach grinder is blazing. I assume you mean that he's doing a good job. When are the J. Bardwell goggles coming out? I have no plans to release goggles. Sorry. Yeah. No. Let's see. What else do we got? I've answered almost all the questions on Patreon. Let's see. Yeah, Daniel Zwarten, I'm glad I missed the camera. It's not a cheap camera. I should have been more careful. Can I run a speaker off of an aux channel and hook a mic up to my transmitter so I can speak into my mic from the ground and my drone will output my sound? No. You can't do that. You could do that if you wrote custom software to do it. Because we know that the UART or the GPIO pins on the flight controller could make an audio signal. They have the frequency response to do it, but the software won't do that. What I would do if you wanted to have a flying quad that played music is you would just get like a wireless, like a Bluetooth speaker or something and mount it on the quad. That's the way to do it. I've been using a Baby Hawk, and for some reason my Tyrannus QX7 is connected on Betaflight. All the channels are wrong. It looks like Betaflight has me in mode 1, and I want to be on mode 2. Well, Caleb Jones, Betaflight doesn't have you in mode 1. Your transmitter completely controls what mode you're in. So if you need to change your transmitter mode, that's going to be in your transmitter. Betaflight, though, has the channel mapping. Where's a quadcopter? Hold on. Here's one. Hang on. Oh, here we go. This will do fine. Hang on. So here in the receiver tab, we've got the channel mapping, and that is where you change the channel mapping. So if the T is for throttle, A is for aileron, E is for elevator, R is for rudder. And you can see that right over here, A-E-R-T, roll, pitch, yaw, throttle, right? And you can change the order of the channels here if you so desire. So if on your quadcopter the aileron and the rudder are reversed, you would change this from T-A-E-R to T-R-E-A, right? However you want to reorder them. So that's how you do it. A couple people are asking about my my plan. I have plans to do a head-to-head test of the RCX 2306 motors and the RCX 2207 motors. It seems like 2306 and 2207 are two really sort of hot spots right now for motors. So there's a lot of good. There's the new Johnny FPV 2207 motors came out. And there's a question of, well, if 2306 is the new 2206 or maybe 2207, if that's the new go-to, then which should you go to? And I want to answer that question, or at least try to answer it, by comparing two RCX motors, 2400 kV on both of them, 2306 and 2207. So I don't have the 2207s yet, so I haven't done the test yet, but that is coming soon. Let's see. Here's another question that I got asked. I didn't get it asked just this minute, but another question is, what about that new Spectrum transmitter? What's that thing called? Let's see. Let me see if I can find a picture of it. There's a new Spectrum radio coming out that has an Android phone in it, basically. It's like $600. There it is, the IX12. Hang on, let me put a picture up for you guys. So this is a new thing that people are asking me about. No, not that. Oh, come on. Spectrum IX12. There we go. This is the Spectrum IX12. It is a Spectrum radio, and this is an Android handset. Except it's not a handset. It's just an Android computer. And it's running this Airwave app that is basically the front end of the radio. But, as you can see, like here, just barely, if you can see it here, it can run any Android app. It's just an Android. So, that's very interesting. I've got a lot of potential for interesting stuff here. Custom apps to do things in the air, I don't know what. And people are asking about my thoughts about it. And I got to say, I love that Spectrum is, I mean, they've made other improvements in the radio too, right? And, you know, fancy gimbals and so forth. But of course, the Android front end is really the interesting thing. But it's like $600, and wow, that's a lot to ask. I think you really gotta want that Android feature to spend $600 on an IX12 versus like a DX12. So that's my first thought about that. Not going to get me to jump ship. The other reason I still stick with FrSky, I love OpenTX, although with the Android front end, you certainly could see Spectrum getting as open-ended and configurable and programmable, maybe more programmable than OpenTX. OpenTX can do Lua scripts, but this is just an Android handset, right? But man, the other thing that FrSky really brings to the table for me is the variety of receivers that you have to pick from, especially if you fly anything other than mini quads. Again, I think it's you have certainly. I mean, Spectrum has a lot of receivers too. It's just that most of them are like $75, $50. It's pretty expensive. So, yeah. William asks, could I, using Arduino, observe the inputs of two gyros, one on each of my hands, then using this information, I would run the wires into the transmitter module of my transmitter? Yeah, you could do that. And William, you've kind of, if you go back, a little history lesson here, kids. The very first flight controllers were made from the gyro chips in the Nintendo Wii nunchucks. So you've kind of gone back in history if you're doing that. You certainly could do that. The transmitter sticks are just potentiometers, so you could wire up any input into the output of the potentiometer and do that if you so desired. Jonas Boucheray asks, waiting for the Fat Shark Dominator HD4 to come out. Want to change from box goggles to Fat Sharks. Any ideas when to expect the launch? I sincerely do not have any ideas about that. And that is not a case where I'm under NDA and I can't say. I haven't heard anything about that. Sorry. I don't know. Doesn't FrSky have the fastest protocol with the lowest latency? Why are we on a quest for low latency elsewhere? WCO3, that's a very good question. FrSky actually does have really low latency. And when we say latency, let's talk about that for a second. So you talk about FrSky latency and you hear like 9 milliseconds, 11 milliseconds. That is not the latency, but that is the frame timing. So each frame is 11 milliseconds long, or 9 milliseconds, or whatever it is. But if you talk about latency in terms of from the minute I move the stick to the minute that signal comes out the receiver, how long does that take? FrSky latency is on the order of, I think it's around like 40, 45 milliseconds. Whereas if you look at something like FlySky, iBus, it's my recollection is it's something like 15 or 20 milliseconds. And the same is true of something like Crossfire. Crossfire has 150 hertz sampling, which means the frames are very small and very frequent, but also the latency, the end-to-end latency, is also very low. And the reason for that actually goes back to, I believe it goes back to primarily a lack of synchronization between the frame timing of the XJT module in the Tyrannus or the radio and the operating system. So the operating system outputs one frame of information, but the radio module isn't ready for it yet. And there's a desync there. And if they were synced up, the FrSky latency would get much lower. There's actually been an open issue on the OpenTX GitHub for a long time to get it fixed, but there's a reason why it hasn't been fixed. I'm not 100% sure what the reason is. I really, really would like to see FrSky putting more work into reducing the latency of the radio protocol and increasing the sampling. Whatever it is that like Crossfire has done that makes Crossfire, some people say Crossfire's so wonderful, see FrSky going that direction. There's just no reason why FlySky is down at 20 milliseconds and FrSky is at 45, 50 milliseconds. Now, the flip side of that is some people would say, gosh, give me a break, 20 milliseconds, who cares? And a lot of people fly FrSky and don't have an issue, but still, it adds up, I guess, is part of my point. If you save 20 milliseconds off your FPV camera and 20 milliseconds off your radio protocol, you knock another, it can really add up. So, but there's more to it. I mean, at the end of the day, I like my Tyrannus and I like OpenTX, and you don't see me switching over to FlySky just for the decreased latency. So, yeah. Where can you get uninverted SmartPort and S-Bus signals from the FrSky XSRM? Well, let's look at the FrSky XSRM and let's see what we can get. I don't think I'm going to know the answer. Here's the FrSky XSRM. Yeah, this is that little 15 by 15 one. The thing is, there's an inverter on here somewhere. There's an inverter on here somewhere. You just got to, like, figure it out. Like, this looks like an inverter to me. Let's bring this picture up a little larger. Hold on. Like this right here. This little guy looks like an inverter. And, in fact, if the lettering on here, you could try to look up. I mean, we're just going to go over the chip looking for an inverter. And when we find it, try soldering to it. You can also look up here. My guess would be these two guys. I wish I could read the lettering on it, but I kind of can't. If you can read the lettering on it, you can often look up what chip it is. And then you can look up the data sheet for the chip and look up the pin out. But if this was an inverter, my guess would be it'd be this middle pin here. There's two of them right here. Oh, what's this? What's this right here? Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe that's uninverted right there. You know, I'm doing this the hard way, though. XSR-M Smart Port Hack. Dr. Google, right? Oscar Leon shows up first. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I knew I wouldn't, but there you go. That's the direction I would go. I just got comfortable enough in goggles to fly around very slowly, asks Randall Smith. My question is, do you think freestyle or racing would be better to develop my pilot skills? Well, Randall, ultimately, you should practice what you enjoy practicing most. But racing and freestyle develop different skills. Racers are much more precise and faster because freestylers are often, they might have to hit a gap, but it's often kind of a big gap compared to like a 3x3 gate or a 4x4 gate. And when freestylers do have to hit gaps, quite often they hit one gap, fly through it, and then they're good, as opposed to a racer who has to hit a consistent line through many gaps. On the other hand, I've found racers, people who like primarily or exclusively race, often don't have the same spatial awareness that freestylers do, because freestylers are moving through the environment. They're not always looking where they're moving, you know, especially if you look at the juicy style pilots like Johnny FPV or Nick Willard. They have a different sort of spatial awareness of the quad, whereas racers are usually, you know, moving forward through gates. So practice what you enjoy. Practice on the sim is certainly worth it. Save yourself some crashes. That's what I would say. Is Bot Grinder in the chat? I don't see him there. Is he streaming right now? Am I streaming over Bot Grinder? Is he here? I got to get him on a stream or get onto his stream. I think we'd be a good pair. Let's see. Everybody hit the like button. Yeah. Why do VTX and VRX can't manage the frequency like the Radio Link does? Asks Sergio Coto. The answer is because they're analog devices, not digital devices, and digital video is hard. Bot Grinder's here. Bot Grinder. Well, I don't know if he was streaming or if he just showed up. Thank you for coming out to the stream. Dylan Bland has been awake for 17 hours to watch this. I'm going to remind you guys that for anybody who's come in late, I do have Super Chat active. I'm trying not to beg for money too much, but this is my full-time job now. I do depend on you guys now for my rent and my mortgage, rather, food on the table. So if you guys, let me remind you, I'll just go to FPVknowitall.com. That's me. And I've got a new page on the website, Support Me, where you can see different ways to support me, including using my affiliate links. If you're into cryptocurrency, you can send me cryptocurrency. Hey, I'm not, you know, there are various ways you can do that. Just a reminder that that's going on. Back to the head cam. What are my thoughts on JBFC, my flight controller with the run cam split 1? The run cam split pulls like 700 milliamps. The JBFC has a 1.2 amp regulator, so in theory you should be able to do it. But the run cam split is really finicky about what power it will accept. And I did have, thank you, Bot Grinder. Bot Grinder says I love you in the super chat. I have at least one person who is having trouble getting it to work. It's only a sample size of 1, so yeah, you can't read too much into it. But if you have a run cam split, you really need just a rock solid 5-volt regulator to make it work. Run cam split V1. James Oliver, how do you get on Super Chat? Well, I'm happy to tell you, James. Down in the chat, the little chat window, there's a $sign and right next to the little emoji. In fact, hey, hang on a second. Watch this. You guys are not going to believe what I can do here. Oh, look at that. Look at that. So right here in the chat window, when you go to type something, you just click the Super Chat button and you give a few bucks and it pops up in a separate window. See, I got this separate window right here where all the Super Chats are broken out so I can see those and make sure I get to them. Oh, okay. I had a black box log I wanted to show you guys, and I don't want to take up. Let me take 1 minute and see if I can find it. I wanted to show you guys this black box log. The questions have slowed down a tiny bit, so let me see if I can handle this. And if I can't find it, then so be it. I'll just tell you about it. Yeah. No, I'm not finding it. That's a shame. This guy was having a problem where his output power of his quad was lower than it used to be, right? He would go to full throttle and it wouldn't throttle up very much. And when he looked in the black box, what he saw was that there were 3 motors were at like 75%. One motor was at like 100%. And I thought that was really interesting because you might expect that on a quadcopter, when you're at full throttle, all the motors would go the same speed. But if you think about it, if you were to just spin all the motors at the exact same speed, probably the quadcopter would not just go in a straight line. Something about the weight balance, the aerodynamic balance, would cause it to veer off in a direction. And so the balanced motor output, the balanced thrust that causes the quadcopter to hover flat, actually involves different motors going different speeds. So if you think about it, when you go to full throttle, one motor is going to reach full throttle, and the other three motors are going to balance themselves relative to that motor so that the quad does what it's being commanded to do. So it's actually really normal that if you look in a black box, you see one motor at full throttle when you go to full throttle, and the other three motors not at full throttle. But what was interesting about this was that seeing three motors at like 75% and one motor at 100%, that's pretty extreme. You would normally expect to see like three motors at 85, 90, 95%, and the other motor at 100%. So that big difference definitely jumped out. And it turns out that that motor was damaged. It had a bad bearing or something was wrong with it. And what that means is that for that motor to get to full throttle, it had for that motor to make enough thrust to balance out the other motors, it had to go to full throttle, and the other motors had to sort of back down. And it brings up this principle that a quadcopter is only as fast or powerful as the weakest motor, because the quadcopter has to keep the motors in balance with each other, otherwise the quad will flip out, right? If you want a quad to fly in a straight line, you can't have the two left-hand motors at full throttle and the two right-hand motors at 85%. It'll turn, right? So if you've got a situation where you've got one motor that's at 100% and the other motor's at 70 or 75%, well, you could look at that motor and see if it's got a bad bearing or if for some reason it's weaker, a different prop or something than the other motors. So that's something. It would be better if I could show you the black box. I just can't find it at the moment. I get a lot of emails. Let's see. A few super chats came in. We've got Scott Caraway. Thank you, Scott. I'm an FPV encyclopedia. Ramble Ron is trying to set up RSSI on channel 16, but when I go to Betaflight to enable it, the dropdown only goes to channel 14. Let's take a look real quick in Betaflight. I'll pull it up and I'll show you. I know the issue, but let's show you. Let me see. Oh, here we go. So right here. So what you're doing is you're trying to set up the RSSI channel. Now where did they put that? Oh, here we go. RSSI channel is disabled. We can see here, hang on, this is not the latest Betaflight. No, 3.2.0. I think it's changed in the latest. Hold on. I'm gonna look back in the replay and see what I hit with this quad when I threw it. Let's see what version this quad is on. Kirk Welding asks, am I going to give some love to KISS people? Kirk, I got nothing against KISS. I teach the stuff that I know, and I just don't know a lot about KISS. Okay, this is 3.2.1. I just don't know a lot about it. I don't have anything against it. I just am not an authority on it. So if I were to become an authority on it, I would make videos about it. But it's sort of a vicious cycle, right? In order for me to become an authority on KISS, I would have to spend a lot of time learning about KISS, and that's time I could be spending doing other things, being an authority about Betaflight. So, that's why I just don't end up doing that. RSSI channel, yeah, okay. So I see RSSI channel here. It's just aux 1 through 14. I see all my RSSI channels here. Ramble Ron, you only see up through channel 14. Well, that's the same aux channel I have, right? I don't have channel 16. Why don't I have a channel 16? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I think it's... Is that it? Max aux channels. Yeah, okay. So set max aux channels. Will this even work? Let's find out. Equals 16. No. So I can only go up to 14 aux channels. That's the max number that's allowed. And when I go into the receiver tab, hello, come on. Oh, come on. In the receiver tab, the RSSI channel pull down, I'm going to guess Ramble Ron, that you are actually on an older version of Betaflight, and your RSSI channel isn't working like I'm seeing here. So, yeah. Looks like on recent revs of Betaflight, it's just right there in the pull down. Exin Ferris gave $10 and asks, are there any new analog camera technologies coming out soon? Would really like to see like an FEOV with good latency. The new camera technologies that are coming out are all these CMOS cameras, like the Predator and the Eagle are two that come to mind. And they have really, really good looking images. I have some videos comparing the Predator, the Eagle, the Monster. You can check them out on my channel. Just do a search. You guys, a pro tip for today is if you want to know anything about anything quad related, go to Google and type Joshua Bardwell and then type whatever your search term is. It's not 100% guaranteed, but a lot of times it will. So just go check Joshua Bardwell, Predator, Eagle. Yeah, that'll do it. I think there's still room for these CMOS cameras to improve, but gosh, they're so much better, in my humble opinion, than the CCD cameras. Even going to a really good CCD camera, like I think the Rotor Riot Runcam Swift is one of the best CCD cameras you can get today. The Rotor Riot Runcam Swift V2 is one of the best you can get. And you go to something like the Predator or the Eagle, and to me, it just knocks the socks off. Some people don't like that style of image, the wide dynamic range, but I think it just looks fantastic. So I think it's coming. That's what's coming. James Oliver asks, gives $5 in the super chat. Thank you, James, and asks, do you have any interest in automated flight using waypoints and GPS? Have I ever used Mission Planner? So it sounds like you might be talking about APM or ArduPilot. I have not used that. I am thinking about doing an iNav series. iNav is a Betaflight fork that Betaflight has really terrible GPS. It has basically no GPS functionality at all. Basically, all it'll do is it'll read the coordinates from the GPS and show them either by telemetry or in the OSD. It doesn't do any loiter, return to home, none of that. So iNav is a fork of Betaflight that adds that stuff. And one of the things it does have is a mission planner, and you can do waypoints and so forth. I'm kind of interested in maybe going that direction. Now that this is my full-time job, I can feel like I have the energy to kind of get out of my comfort level a little bit more than I used to. So, Alex Suarez asks, is tramp telemetry offered on other VTXs besides Immersion RC? Yes, it is, in fact. And in fact, back when, so TBS has made smart audio officially an open protocol and has said other people can implement it without necessarily needing to like get permission from them. But before they did that, Immersion RC, they also said we would prefer to work with people to implement this, but they didn't pitch a hissy fit when people didn't do that. So yeah, this tramp telemetry, I mean, you ask, is it official? Well, what does that even mean? They implemented the protocol. There's no copyright on the protocol. There's no patent on it. Anyone can implement it, and they did. So yeah, it's official. Let's see. What do you think, asks Facus FPV, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. What do you think of motors that have a maximum consumption of 40 amps versus batteries in the market? Okay, so if your motor pulls 40 amps and you got 4 of them, then you pull 160 amps, and there just isn't a battery, maybe a really, really good, like 1500 or 1600 milliamp hour battery could do 160 amps for not very long, but maybe for a few seconds before it sags down and loses it. But the other thing to keep in mind is that when you look at a bench test, that doesn't 100% reflect what you're going to actually get in flight. Under most flight conditions, the props will unload. And what that means is this. So the prop starts spinning and it pushes the air. And while it's getting the air moving, it is drawing a lot of amps. Then as the quad starts moving, there's airstream going across the prop, right? Now we're moving forward. And it's like if you're trying to start a heavy cart rolling. You got to push really hard to get it moving. But then once it's moving, it's kind of easy to keep moving. We say the prop unloads in flight. And what that means is that under most flight conditions, during a bench test, the prop doesn't unload at all. It's not moving. It's just sitting there. So during most flight conditions, you're going to see 20 to 30%, let's say, less amp draw in real flight than on the bench. So you got a motor that pulls 40 amps on the bench with a given prop. It might pull only certainly 35, maybe 30 amps in flight. And that's going to bring your amp draw back down to something more reasonable. I say under most flight conditions because there are, like, imagine that you've just done a big power loop and you're coming to the bottom of the power loop, and because you're an awesome freestyle pilot, you wait till the very last second to hit the throttle. At that moment when the quad is falling and you jam the throttle, the props are actually loaded more than they were on the bench. And you may see a voltage or a current spike higher than what you measured on the bench. But in general, the props will unload in flight and draw less amps in flight than on the bench. What are your thoughts, asks NYX, about the Cadex Turbo Micro SDR1? Yes, I put it into my build. I did the JBF4 build with the iFlight Transframe X5 frame, and I put the Cadex Turbo SD1. I'm looking forward to getting a test of that. I have a couple other Cadex cameras that they sent me. Looking forward to testing them, but I haven't tested them yet. That's a really good question, and you are. I can tell from your name that you're Polish, Janowski. I'm not 100% sure how to say your first name, so I'm not going to offend you by trying. But really good question about designing an optimal drivetrain with all the things available to you, things like motors, props, etc. And it's a really hard question. I got to tell you, so first of all, let's start with the ESCs. ESCs are actually pretty easy these days. Most 5-inch builds, you could use a 20 amp ESC and be fine, because most 5-inch motors are not going to. A 20 amp ESC is going to be that's the continuous rated. It's going to have a surge rating up to like 25 or 30 amps, and very few 5-inch setups are going to pull more than 120 amps for very long. Some of them will, but most won't. If you go up to a 25 or a 30 amp ESC, I dare say that's all you need for any 5-inch and most 6-inch builds. So the ESCs are pretty simple. Pick a 20 to 30 amp ESC. Choose BL Heli S or BL Heli 32 based on other things like D-Shot. Do you want to run D-Shot 1200 or not? But that's not really, the ESC is almost not really part of the powertrain anymore. Hang on, don't freak out. Like first Joshua said, a heavier quad flies faster. Then he said an ESC was not part of the powertrain. That's not what I meant. What I mean is that when you're designing your powertrain, you kind of don't have to think about the ESC, except that you make sure you're not, it can handle the amps, and then that's it. But even that's relatively simple. So then what you're really going to think about is the motor and prop that you want. And for me, they need to be matched. So if we look at, I put these EFAW 2407 motors on here, and I started with the light prop that I was using. So a small motor with not a lot of torque, like the T-Motor Air, I think it's a 2206. It's going to need a light prop to get good handling out of. If you put a heavy prop on a weak motor, you might get more thrust, but you're going to get bad handling. So we put that heavy motor on there with lots of torque, and then you match it with a light prop, and you don't get a lot of speed, and you don't get a lot of thrust. And you put a heavier prop on it, and that kind of makes the most of the motor's torque. But now I'm off into, I haven't answered your question. I'm just sort of babbling. And that's the problem. If you really understand how motors work and how to match them to props, you can come up with something that works, but there's a lot of trial and error. Like you might find that a heavier motor performs better with a lighter prop, depending on how the motor is designed and how it performs. So what I would say for a beginner who's trying to design a power system is find somebody else and just copy them. Just buy what they bought. And then you'll start to get a perspective on how different motors perform and how they match with different props. But in general, what I would say is smaller, weaker motors should be paired with light props, like lower pitch, like a 50-40 prop, a 50-40 tri-blade, as opposed to larger motors with more torque, which can be easier paired with heavier props, higher pitch, and so forth. I had a guy say, he said, I bought the Holybro Kopis, which I really like the Kopis as a ready to fly. There are many good ones out there, but Holybro sent me the Kopis months ago, back before it was for sale, and they said, we got this new product, try it out. And I was like, okay, I didn't even know you were working on one. And the minute I flew it, I was like, holy this thing flies really nicely. It wasn't the fastest quad I'd ever flown, but as a freestyle pilot, I felt like it was just really neutral, really responsive, really fun to fly. And it really sort of inspired me and encouraged me to do cool tricks. I really liked the way it flew. I still recommend people buy it. And this guy said, hey, I bought the Kopis, but I'm getting all these crazy oscillations. And I said, oh, well, that's really weird. Well, it turns out he had put heavier props on it. He had played with the D gain. He had made all these changes to it. And mismatching the prop to the motor is going to make the quad fly better. You can't take like a 50-50-50 tri-blade and put it on those little T-motor air motors and expect good results. They just don't have the torque to run it. So find a setup that somebody else is using that's working for them and then copy it, and then kind of start to branch out by putting different props on the motor and seeing how it flies and how it affects the tuning. But if you don't know how to tune, it's going to be hard for you to figure out why the fact that you put a different prop on the motor caused you to get more prop wash oscillation, because you might not even know what prop wash oscillation is. Or, so it's all interrelated, and copying somebody else's setup is a decent thing to do. Okay. I got a couple super chats in here. Woven Skin gives $5 and asks, quad camp with the Bardwell. I'm sure I wouldn't mind. I'm not the only one who wouldn't mind paying a bit to hang out with you. I'm thinking about that. I would love to get some people, maybe come out to my property or do some kind of a quad camp. It's tough because on the one hand, I mean, I can't have 100 people come to my house as much as I would like to. So it's a way, I got to think about the best way to balance, and I'm only one guy, right? To balance, but of course, the fewer people that come, the more expensive it has to be. So I got to find the right way to balance all that stuff. But I will tell you this. I'm pretty sure this has been announced, but if it hasn't been announced, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a quad camp, a Rotor Riot quad camp in Atlanta, somewhere around the end of January, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be involved in it. If I'm wrong about that, then I apologize to Chad Capper and the Rotor Riot guys for screwing that up. But somebody reached out to me today and said, hey, can I get a headshot for the quad camp in January? So I assume that means it's on. So I'm looking forward to that. The quad camp that Rotor Riot did in California like a month ago was a huge success. And I'll tell you a little story. 8 months ago, I wanted to do a quad camp, but not just like a weekend thing. I was like, I want to go and just spend like a week in a room, teach them everything they need to know. Soldering, build a quad, learn to fly a quad, just do this. I had this dream for this big intensive thing. And of course, that's a lot. We got to start small and work our way up. And when I heard that Rotor Riot guys had done a quad camp, I chatted Chad Capper and I said, dude, you stole my idea. Please let me help with the next one. Because I love to teach, but the logistics of the quad camp really, not so much. So if I could get Chad Capper and the Rotor Riot guys to do the logistics while I just got to come out and hang out with you guys and teach, that would be great. So I'm still thinking about doing my own like quad camp style thing, and I don't know what form that will take. But I think at the end of January, keep your eyes peeled for something in Atlanta. So there you go. Pile of Carbon gives 50. Again, I think it's Swedish kroner, SEK. Thoughts on 3D printed frames? Complete waste of time, or isn't there any merit to them? Andy Shen has been working on a 3D printed frame, has been trying to get the bugs worked out of it, and as far as I know to this day, has not produced anything that he felt was worth selling. I think he did get a 3D printed frame that worked, that was not a total piece of crap. But you can't just print it at home on your cheap little, Ultimaker or whatever. It's like some really expensive high-end 3D printing process. So right now, I do not feel like 3D printed frames are nothing that you're going to print at home unless you have like a really, really high-end printer that does some fancy filament that I don't know what it is. So no, just this, it's not stiff enough. It's not durable enough. That's the way it seems to me. Let's see what we got. Let me check back in. I see that people are still posting over at Patreon. Let me just check in real quick back at Patreon. What kind of resistor do I need to do the HP server power supply? Well, interesting. You should mention that. What you're talking about is over here on fpvknowitall.com is, if we go to resources, best 12-volt power supply parts list. And what I've got here is the parts list for building a really great 12-volt power supply for basically for LiPo charging out of a rack mount server supply. Now, out of the box, this will not even turn on when you plug it in. You have to get a resistor and solder a resistor to a particular part, or solder the resistor if you are offended by the word solder. And the resistor that you need is just a bog standard 1/4 watt 330 ohm resistor. And what I've got over here on this page is a link to a kit of resistors. Since just buying one, if you have like a Radio Shack or something handy, you could just go buy one resistor. But if you're ordering off the internet, it probably makes sense to buy the kit. Then you'll have them when you need them. That's the resistor you need. Yes, the live stream will be published as a video after. Don't worry, I will always do that. Not a big deal. What are your thoughts on the Newbeedrone Leviathan? Well, gosh, I don't know. Let me look up what that is and tell you my thoughts. I know, random. Radio Shack's dead. I'm old. There you go. Newbeedrone Leviathan. Racing and freestyle frame. Oh, that's kind of cool. Looks like a D-Quad Obsession, kind of, doesn't it? A little bit similar to that. Not that similar, though. Oh, I remember this. They showed me this when I was out there. I was out in San Diego a little while back. They showed me this. It looks like they're producing it. It's a clever design. It's got, this is 3D printed, or at least the one I saw was. This might be molded. They might have molded it now. But it was a really cool 3D printed material. It was like really high quality. Almost felt molded. And it's kind of cool here. They've got the camera behind protection. That's kind of neat. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that the arms are replaceable. They're doing a similar thing here with the arms. Notice that the arms come together on the bottom plate. This is the same thing that was done. That's this guy. This is a frame that I actually helped bring to market. I didn't actually develop it or anything. I just introduced the developer to Ready Made RC and Banggood so he could get it produced. It's the same thing this frame does, which is, let me see if I can find a picture. The arms come together underneath, and there's basically no gaps here. It's just solid. So it's almost like it's got, you know, an 8mm bottom plate here on the bottom. Looks like they're doing the same thing with the Leviathan. Got a tuning question here from Temenet. Baby Hawk upgraded to 322, pitches forward on yaw. Why? That is a tough one. What I would want to do first is I would want to try to characterize that. Like I would go to a nice flat hover and I would yaw and make sure I wasn't even touching the right stick and see if it pitches forward. My guess is that you've got some up tilt. And so let's think about that. If you're pitched forward and you're flying forward and you yaw to the left without coordinating your turn, will that appear as pitched? Yes, it will. No, it'll look like a pitch back, not a pitch forward. So I would be in a flat hover line of sight and I would yaw. And if when I yaw, it pitches forward, maybe the flight controller is not mounted flat would be something I would check. Because if the flight controller is skewed, when you yaw, it will yaw along its own axis. And if the frame is angled relative to the flight controller, that'll appear to pitch or move or something. That's my best guess. That's my best guess. I would want to isolate it as much as I could, though. I don't think you're going to solve that with PIDs, though. Like a lot of times what you'll get is if you yaw violently or aggressively, you'll get climbing. It'll gain altitude because the motors can't spin. And that's not just the Baby Hawk, that's any quad. It can't spin the motors up and down fast enough. But to pitch forward when it yaws, like I could see it dipping an arm. Maybe one motor isn't changing speed quickly enough. So when you yaw aggressively, that arm dips. But to pitch forward, if you think about it, one of the forward-facing motors is spinning up, one is spinning down. and to cause the quad to pitch forward, that would that's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. I hope I've been helpful. Bernard Goulet asks, should I build a hexacopter to take videos and pics, or should I buy the DJI Mavic Pro Platinum? I used to know a guy, I still do know him, but I also used to know him. You know where that joke comes from. I used to know a guy who was a professional aerial photographer, does real estate photography, motion picture stuff, and he flew Phantoms. And the Inspire, he flew an Inspire. He had a DJI S1000 or S2000, whatever that quad is. He flew DJI stuff. And I said, bro, you know how to build. Why don't you build your own? And he said, I couldn't build and maintain anything as good as what DJI makes for the price. Especially if you consider things like the digital FPV system, the digital video system, or if you go on the Mavic or the Inspire, the sonar system, the auto landing, all that, the software side. But just build me a hexacopter that'll fly for 20 minutes, 25 minutes like a DJI will. It's a lot harder than you think. Maybe not you if you're like a genius, but so whenever he said, just buy one, don't build your own. You're going to spend especially if you're a professional, you don't have time. If you're a hobbyist, sure, do whatever, who cares? But if you're a professional, you don't have time to screw around building and maintaining something. Just buy a DJI, he said. I was like, wow, okay. So if you ask, should I build my own or should I buy a Mavic? Well, if you have the money to buy a Mavic, just buy a Mavic. That's my thinking. If you want to build your own and will enjoy it, do it. But in the end, you'll still have spent $1,300 to build the thing, and it still won't do half the things a Mavic does because there's no open source solution for things like the software side. So that's what I say about that. Oh. Yeah, and the Mavic too. Like Phantom, you could get Phantom 3. So McFlyaway FPV says my Walmart has Phantom 3s for $300 because nobody's buying them. Yeah, and Uniques as well. I don't know about Unique. Is Unique any good? I don't know. But the Mavic is such a killer. I mean, if you really are into pro videography, then an Inspire or maybe a Phantom 4 has a slightly better camera. But for most people, the Mavic is a heck of a deal. Even at $1,300, which is a lot of money, boy, you get a lot of value out of it. Just don't crash it, because then you're screwed. All right. Yeah, Unique. Andre Huntsler recommends the Unique Typhoon H, a great hexacopter for aerial videos, much cheaper than DJI, not as fancy, but pretty reliable in my experience. It's true. I worry that if I bought a Unique, I would constantly be wishing I'd bought a Mavic, because the Mavic is like just... it's such a package. But yeah, it's way cheaper. How much is the Unique? Let's go look. And where do they sell the Unique? Unique Typhoon H. Let's see. Where can you buy one, though? Amazon. There you go. Here we go. It is Pro Bundle for $1,000. Yeah, see? I don't know. $1,000 for the Unique Pro Bundle. Hang on. How much for a Mavic? Pro Bundle with shoulder bag price. Does that have the... yeah, it's got the transmitter too. $1,100 for... what am I... I'm probably missing. It's probably not a fair comparison, but $1,100 for a Mavic versus $1,000 for a Unique. Granted, one is a quad, one is a hex. They're slightly different. You know, one is giant, one is... but yeah, I don't know. We're getting close to the end here, guys. We've been going for about 2 hours. Unique, New York. Unique, New York. Unique, New York. Space Cowboy FPV. I used to be in theater. I know how to do these things. Elias Dirk asks, would you power the Eagle 2 from the Unify Pro 5e out or the 7 point? I would use 7.6 volt. The Eagle 2 is rated down to 5 volts, but I'm always a little bit skeptical about running something right at the bottom of its rated voltage. There's some video transmitters that are rated for 7.2 volts that if you run them off the 7.6 volt on my flight controller, they're not happy about it. You don't get clean video. So honestly, on many of my quads, I've got a Unify HV and I've got the Eagle running off of battery voltage, and it works fine. So that's the simplest approach and seems to work under a lot of situations. James Papier asks, do you know when the Betaflight F3 with Kalman filters will be more efficient on F7s? I'm not sure what you're asking there. So I don't know. I will say this. Kalman filters can do a lot more than they're currently being asked to do in Betaflight and Raceflight, if we assume that what we're seeing in Betaflight now is similar to what Raceflight 1 is doing. Some people have argued that the Kalman filters in Betaflight, the pre-release version of Betaflight right now, basically, because of the way they're being used, they essentially boil down to a low-pass filter. And that there's more that we could be doing with them to make them even more effective. Once that stuff starts getting rolled out, I think we're going to start seeing F7s become more mandatory. Invert FPV. Are you talking to me? I'm getting off track? I don't know what that means. I am going to start wrapping up, though. We're coming up on 9 o'clock. It's been about 2 hours. I will continue to take a few more questions, and of course, if any super chats come in, of course I will get them. I will say it's really good to be back. I have done like one live stream in the last year because, as I said in my announcement video, I've just been traveling and so tired. I just haven't had the energy for it. It's a lot less work to do a live stream because I don't have to edit it afterwards, and editing takes time. But on the flip side, being like on, that takes a lot out of you. So I'm really glad to be back, and I'm really looking forward to doing more of this. Maybe even spinning it into like a weekly podcast. I feel like I can do a good interview with the right guest. So maybe doing more interviews. Looking forward to that. Would love to hear your suggestions down in the comments once this goes over to the regular video, or you're always welcome to email me or message me on Facebook. Ever since I went full-time, number one, I got a ton more patrons and a ton of donations. That's really great. Thank you, guys. I also have been getting a ton more questions. It's like people went, oh, okay. And I'm just getting and I love it. I love it. It's what I want to do. And so I appreciate you guys letting me do it. Looking forward to the next live stream. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully I can work out my technical difficulties of getting people to dial in. And just keep making great content. I got good stuff coming for you. I did a tutorial with Willie down in Atlanta this weekend on how to be juicy. Willie's going to teach me to be juicy. So I got that edited, and it'll be coming out in the next day or two. Look forward to that. Yeah, tech support for the hobby. I like that. That's me. Am I going to design an F7 flight controller? Jim Griffin asks. Right now, I put an F4 on my flight controller, and I'm sticking with it until I'm not interested in chasing numbers. That makes me a very bad marketer. F7 would probably sell better, and you could charge more for it. But I'm just not convinced there's a reason to do it yet. And even after there is a reason to do it, I still won't do it because I'm just not that cutting edge. I'm really not. I'm not out at the forefront. I'll be at the forefront and I'll tell you guys what I see, but when it comes time to really invest effort into documenting stuff and making videos about stuff and putting stuff on all my quads, I'm like the tried and true a little bit more. So thank you to Random FPV for spontaneously showing up and moderating as well. I'd love to have him back on again. Of course, you're welcome anytime, Random, once I get my technical issues sorted out. What would be a good setup? Michael Kalma asks in the super chat, what would be a good setup for a long-range 6-inch rig capable of doing about 5 to 6 minutes? I hesitate to answer a little bit because I haven't built one of those myself, but in general, to do longer range and more efficiency, you want larger props and lower KV motors. So I would be looking at something like maybe even these EFAW 2407 motors, but not in the 2550 kV version that I've got. If there's a lower kV, like a 1900 or 2000 kV, I remember back in the day, 6-inch rigs that were more efficient, you're typically looking at something like 1900 or 2000 kV on, like 4S. And then you just want the bigger 2-blade props are more efficient than 3-blade, and generally you get longer flight times there. And in terms of battery, I might be looking at something in the 1800 to 2200 milliamp hour range. The battery is the thing I'm least certain about because it's really, as you get to a bigger battery, you also have more weight. So you can actually use a bigger battery and get shorter flight times. And worse handling. So I'm not sure exactly where that balances out, but that's roughly where I'd be looking. And I am thinking about doing like maybe like a 7-inch iNav build. I mentioned this earlier. I'd love to see like a 7-inch iNav build with maybe 1.3 gigahertz video, crossfire, something like that, and try out some of that. No promises on the time frame. I remember somebody asked, why not 2.4 gig video? Why 1.3? You're right about that. 2.4 gig will give you very long range. And if you're doing crossfire, then you don't need to worry about interference with your 2.4 gig transmitter. But I feel like staying away from 2.4 gig video because of how much it can interfere with 2.4 gig. If you ever did fly with anybody who was using a regular 2.4 gig controller, you would certainly interfere. 1.3 can also interfere a little though too, but I think you can filter it. It'll be okay. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap up here. I appreciate that there are still more questions coming in, but especially as I've been drinking this water for the last 2 hours, I need a break, and I think 2 hours is a good length of time. I'll let you know when the next one's coming out, probably sometime next week, and I'll try and maybe get a guest on, or yeah, we'll see how it pans out. But I think this was a big success. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. Oh, Alex Suarez. Okay, I'm going to do one more question. Because Alex asked a good question. What don't you like about your new flight controller? Damn you, Alex. When I released a flight controller, a lot of people said, that's it. That's it. That's the end of Joshua's objectivity. That's the end of it. He's got his own flight controller out, so of course, you can't be objective about any others. But I think you guys, if you haven't already seen it, you will see that that's just not the case. Because I pick my own stuff apart just as much as anybody's. And I'll prove it right here. Alex Suarez asks, what don't you like about your own? And the thing is, like, you would think that I would release a flight controller and it would be perfect, right? But no, you release it. At some point, you say, well, we got to release it. We can't keep going back to the drawing board and changing it. We have to sell a product eventually. And so you say, okay, this is it. This is V1, but there's always going to be a V2. And those of you who bought my V1 parallel charge board and then were a little disappointed with how fast I came out with the V2, and I know you're out there because you've told me, they said, well, gosh, I feel a little bit bad that I bought the V1. You came out with the V2 2 months later, and it's better, and it's not that much more expensive. Don't worry. I will not be doing that with this flight controller. I feel really good about the V1 of my flight controller, and it takes, I said to Tyler at Race Day Quads, I said, well, theoretically, if we did want to improve it, how long would it take? And he's like, dude, it would take 6 months to even come out with a new flight controller. So that's not happening. But some things I don't like about my V1 that I wish were different. A lot of people have said they want the ESC pads on the corners. And when I designed it, I thought, well, wow, how big of a deal is that? It's a bigger deal than I thought to have to bring all 4 of the wires back to the UART pad. I feel like the next version will have ESC pads on the corners. On the other hand, in order to do that, it's starting to look like we would have to give up the ESC ground pads, which a lot of people are going to be upset about. So I'm not sure how we're going to solve that issue, but ESC pads in the corners, yeah, for sure. We did testing on the 7.6 volt regulator, and we believe that that was the right voltage to go with. But remember I said earlier, you do all your testing, you do the best testing you can, and then you release the product, and as soon as you sell 1,000 of them, suddenly you find people having problems that you didn't get. We've seen more video, not very many, but more video transmitters than we would like that aren't happy with 7.6 volts. Even though they're supposed to be rated down to 7.2 volts, they're just not happy with it. I think that the regulator, we might go with a higher, like a 9 volt regulator instead of 7.6, just to maximize the number of people who have good results. Let's see. Hold on. I have a, yeah, you think 8.4 is right, Billy D? I don't know exactly the voltage. I mean, ultimately, you just change one resistor and it changes the output of the regulator. I actually have, hold on, I have a OneNote file with the notes about what else I want to do. I'm not going to show it to you, but I am going to look at it. The camera control. Camera control has a resistor on it, but the best results with camera control are actually with a resistor and a capacitor. So what I'd really like to have happen is by the time the next version of my flight controller comes out, that Betaflight will support the DAC, the digital analog function, and you won't need to mess with resistors and capacitors at all. It'll just work. But if that didn't happen, then I would love to see a capacitor and a resistor on it. I'd love to see us change the target files in Betaflight. Right now, you have to manually set telemetry half duplex to off if you want to use SmartPort. And when I found it, I was like, well, why isn't it already like that by default? I don't know. I don't know how to do the target file for it, but I would love to see that happen. Also, the default current sensor scale is not actually very accurate. I wish we could change the default to be more accurate so that you didn't have to calibrate it as much. Yeah. And then the other thing, and this is another one that's a big one, is I really underestimated how much people were going to want to run Crossfire. And some of that is because we started designing this board months ago, a long time ago, and Crossfire wasn't as big. Crossfire has just gotten way more popular. And so the fact that there's only TX4 and RX4 that you can use with Crossfire, and then that really kind of leaves you in a lurch if you want to also do smart audio and LED strip. And I would love to see like one more TX and RX pad on the board. And what I think we might do is if we were to add TX6, then you would have TX6 and RX6, TX4 and RX4, and that would leave you just a little bit more flexibility if you're running Crossfire. For everybody else, you can do basically everything you want to do with the pads as they currently are. But if you're running Crossfire, you're a little bit constrained. So that's what I would do differently if I were reviewing my board and complaining about it. Those are the things I would complain about. And yeah, now you know. So, alrighty, guys, that is gonna wrap it up for me. Thank you guys so much for coming out. We're gonna end the live stream now, and I will see you guys next time.